Hello and good evening again. So, as I mentioned earlier, I want to build an old machine, rebuild an old machine. And you saw earlier my PCBs for the AdLib card. Here they are packed up all nicely. But the AdLib card itself isn't much use if I don't have a PC from that era. So the reason behind this is, well, the very first PC that I used back in the day, around the end of 1990, beginning of 1991, was actually a 286 PC. And those were quite fun machines, pretty limited of course, but for me it was immensely fun because I could play games, learn a bit of BASIC and stuff. And of course I don't have that machine anymore. It's a long time ago, and by now they have gotten actually pretty rare and pretty expensive. A complete working machine can easily cost a couple of $100 or euros, and that's just way too much for me. So I thought I might snatch up some cheap parts on eBay. I had a look for a couple of months, and for example I got this mainboard, 286 mainboard, for I think 25 euros or something, which is really cheap, and the seller said it was in working order. I haven't hooked it up yet, so we will see if that is still true. There's a couple of pitfalls that you need to know with these things. You need to know which things fit together, and you have to know that a lot of these things have different kind of problems over the years, because some of those things are already 30 years old. Yeah, but we'll come to that. So this here is some, I guess, no-name 286 board. There's a type designation on here, but I didn't come up with anything, so I don't know what all the jumpers mean. I hope everything is set up correctly. I give you a quick rough tour of the main board, show you the other components that I have, and in the next few videos we will go in more depth, and we will also hook it up all together. Right now I don't even have a case, so I will put it up just on my desk here and see how it turns out. So first of all, the heart of the whole thing, I have to turn this around so that you can see it. The heart of the whole thing is under this metal sheet here, this metal clamp. This is the actual 8286 Intel processor. I will make a video about the whole 86 type of CPUs and what they mean. So that's the heart of the machine. This here is probably some kind of BIOS maybe, or at least ROM, I think. But over here, down here, you would see it later, is actually, I think, the actual BIOS in an even and odd pair. This here is the socket for the coprocessor, 287 floating point unit. I have one lying around, so we might put that in at a later time and see if it helps us with some of the programs that we want to run. There's a lot of support chips that I don't even have a clue what they are. I know that these are two DMA controllers, but that's about it. So the 286 is actually 10 megahertz, which is a bit faster than the standard 8 megahertz that the first IBM PC-80 shipped with, but still pretty slow. Although it's already a 16-bit machine, which you can also see by the large ISA slots, which are 16-bit wide, and we also have two smaller 8-bit ISA slots, where you can put cards in, like the VGA cards, AdLib card, and so on. We'll come to that. It came shipped with 512K of base memory and also installed with 512K extended memory. So we should have 1 megabyte of memory, I think. The seller thought it was only 512K memory, but the BIOS says 512 base and 512 extended. So with 1 megabyte of memory, we should be doing actually pretty fine and should be able to run all the old games and software that I used to run in 1990, 1991. Yes, so here we see the two BIOS chips. One is the odd bits and one is the even bits, or bytes probably, I guess. And both together make up the whole BIOS. Okay, so The main boards are pretty bare from the time. You don't have any extra components on here apart from the chipset dealing with interrupts, DMA, handling the memory, the BIOS, and the actual CPU and FPU, and nothing else. You can't connect any floppies or hard disks. You don't have any video output, so it's really a lot of chips for very little that's happening here. Compared to all the modern stuff we have, like we have systems on chip where everything is on one single thing. So you see we've come a long way in 30 years. So let's take a look at the other stuff that we have. Let me put this away without destroying it. So first thing that we need to actually see something will be a video card. I have 3 different video cards. This here I plan on using in the long term because it's the best of the 3 that I've got. It's a Trident 8900D Super VGA card with, I think, 1 megabyte of RAM, but I haven't checked. But the 8900D can have 1 megabyte of RAM, which gives you quite a nice range of Super VGA modes, which you could use when you're running Windows 3.0 or 3.1, which would still in theory be possible on this machine, although we probably need to find a way to install more memory. But anyway, this is the best card, but for testing purposes I will probably use another card with the Trident 9000 chip because they are very common and pretty cheap. I also got this rather cheap, also around 20 euros, but they can go for way more by this time, so you have to be on the lookout if you also want to build a machine like that. Pretty simple VGA card, the core chip which does all the graphics registers, etc. Then a RAM DAC chip which converts the digital information in the frame buffer to analog information that can be output to the analog VGA port. Funny enough, nowadays all the screens are digital, so they would read out the frame buffer directly and put it over via HDMI or DisplayPort or something to the actual display. But back then we needed an analog step in there to drive the analog cathode ray tubes actually. And there's also a BIOS here. You always need a BIOS on the VGA cards. And I will also make an extra video where we go into more depth on the VGA cards and other graphics standards. Okay, that's so we can see actually a little bit. And we need to have some kind of mass storage medium. So this is an actual IDE disk controller, which lets you attach hard disks to this port here. There's also a game port for attaching joysticks. Also on the back plane here is one, I think, parallel port, I would say, and a serial port, 9-pin, because we didn't have USB back then. We had serial ports and parallel ports. And there's also a jumper for a second serial port that you could install on a second blade. And we have something here which is the floppy drive port, but I won't be installing a floppy drive. Too much hassle right now, also maybe for a later time. Yes, that's basically it. You can configure it via some jumpers here. You can attach an LED to see the hard disk indicator. I won't be using an actual hard disk because they're prone to fail, they're loud. It's hard to get software in there without the floppy drive. So what I'll actually be using is this neat little thing here. It will get installed also in here. It's a compact flash reader basically. You can put in a compact flash card and connect via an IDE cable to this thing, and it just handles like a standard hard drive. Very nice. So whenever we want to put software on there, we can take it out, put it into a compact flash reader on the PC, and put all the software we want on there without needing a network, which is pretty tricky on those old machines, or even a floppy drive. Very nice. Yeah, so that rounds it up, I think. These are all the base components that we need. There's one more thing. Power. How do we get power in there? So actually those old machines used so-called AT style connectors, which are these things, instead of the now used ATX connectors. And the guy who gave me the board had this nice little converter from ATX to AT, so I can use a standard ATX power supply. And he also, let me show you, put in some jumper cables in here, which melted away maybe. Those are here so that you can actually turn the ATX power supply on, because ATX power supplies are soft switched by the mainboard, and AT power supplies would have an actual power switch. So we need to emulate this soft switch by jumping a few cables. But this doesn't look very trustworthy, I'd say, so I just got a whole new set of cables here for a few bucks off of eBay. And this should actually do it. I might still have to jump a cable in here or install a switch. I might be able to use this here. I'm not sure, I have to look up the actual pinout. But this will be another video, how to hook up the whole thing and boot it up for the first time. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'm eagerly looking forward to actually putting all this stuff together. Currently on the research on what I need to know as well, if it will blow up when I do this, or taking all the precautions. So have a nice Easter weekend, and I hope you have a good time. If you like this, please subscribe and share this video. Anyway, thanks for watching.